What is up, everybody? Welcome to Fourth and Frames, our weekly podcast here in season here at fantasyandframes.com, getting you ready for all of the week's matchups. Well, I should say all the week's matchups, but some of our key plays and fades here that we want to tell you all to pay attention to. And of course, we get you up to date on all the news and notes from around the NFL and how that can impact your fantasy football matchups this week. I'm your host, Jorge Edwards. And just like old times, Nate Markham, my fellow co-host here, it's just you and I this week. It's been a while since it's just been you and I doing a podcast together.
I know. It's about time we drop that extra weight. Just back down to basics.
But, I know. Yeah.
All kidding aside, of course.
Of course, we're referring to Tyler and Keith. Tyler, we hope you feel better. You get back soon. If you did not see the Dynasty 365 podcast at 7:30 today, the reason for that is they were recording it yesterday because Tyler couldn't be here with us today. So head over to our YouTube channel, check out our latest Dynasty 365 podcast episode entitled Quarterback Carousel. Both he and Jonathan Kalinowski, one of our UK writers, senior UK writers here at Fantasy and Frames, had the pod. It was fantastic. 30 minutes of your time, a great pod to listen to on your way to and from wherever it is you're going in your car or bike or wherever. So check that out over on our YouTube page, and please listen and subscribe while you're there as well. So this is an interesting week. You know, a lot of things happened this past week. A lot of things are happening, you know, off the field. Let's talk about one of the biggest things here for fantasy football managers. Nate, I faded running back like I'm sure many people did in the first round of their drafts this year, and it was 3 names at wide receiver if you were going to go that route. Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, Cooper Kupp. Some can even make the argument, you know what, it's just Justin Jefferson and Cooper Kupp. Well, 2 out of those 3 are no longer playing right now because they're on IR, they're banged up. You know, it's bad when you hear, you know, a fracture needs surgery. It's odd, at least it's odd to me, when I hear a sprain needs surgery. You have a little bit of a health background here. What are your thoughts when you heard that this sprain required surgery?
Well, I guess, you know, by definition, sprain is still technically a tear of a ligament. I mean, by definition, I don't know to what degree they quantify that. And so if those ligaments around the ankle, you know, right where like that tibia and fibula separations that get too distressed, I guess that requires surgery. I was, you know, here's my take, and it sounds kind of crazy. I think I'm more relieved that he's going to have surgery because now I'm not going to be tempted to put him back in my lineup even in 4 weeks when he returns. Is it crazy to think?
No, it's not. I mean, what are the Rams playing? What are the Rams playing for at that
Nothing.
time?
Nothing.
And we'll be, you know, somebody from the Rams maybe to talk about later on in the show in terms of a fade. Little foreboding there. No, exactly. They're not playing for anything. It's. You know, and I was having this conversation with somebody at work today who's a diehard Rams fan. And he's like, yeah, and I don't know what's going to happen. You know, like they don't have any draft picks. It's not like they can tank for, you know, better player in the draft, you know, and it's like, what's going to happen? Are they going to dismantle the team? And, you know, because of the money allocation everywhere. And I thought to myself, and I said to him afterwards, look, this Rams team was built to win the Super Bowl last year. And they did. And that's great. That's I mean, if you're a Rams fan, that's fantastic. But this was not meant to last forever. This was not about building for longevity. This was about instant satisfaction and gratification, which you got in your home stadium in one of the best ways possible. So yeah, it's kind of interesting what's happening here. You know, Stafford coming off of the concussion. He's still technically in the concussion protocol. But he's looking like he's going to start this week, according to head coach Sean McVay. But without his top wide receiver, you know, that's, again, something we may be discussing a little bit later. So, yeah, that's a big bummer. Going to Tennessee now, it was great seeing Ryan Tannehill have a decent day this past week. He's fully healthy, should be the starter. No Malik Willis for this season. We got a comment here. Let's go over here. Oh, yeah, here's our Sunday morning favorite here. DJ Duvernay always checking us out here. Hey, y'all, I'm in a PPR league. Was it worth stashing Deshaun Watson for fun in the playoffs, even if I have Lamar Jackson as my quarterback right now? Stashing for fun? Sure. Give me a person who has, top, 10 quarterback upside, when you already have a quarterback who has top 10 quarterback upside in fantasy.
There's two sides to that. What else is fun? Is when my opponent doesn't have Deshaun Watson if he has top 10 upside.
The game within the game.
Absolutely. I mean, if you have the room, I'm always about eliminating players that can hurt me from my opponent's standpoint.
Absolutely. Like my work league today for sleeper, I don't know how it is for you, but my waivers always go through at like 3:00 in the morning. Eastern time. I'm assuming that goes 2:30 in the morning for you or something like that. And I am literally like my phone vibrates. I wake up, I make my stuff, I raid the waiver wire, I put everybody on my bench. So like nobody, and I try to do this for all my leagues, where there's nobody available for anybody to pick up. Coincidentally, my boss is the next person to add somebody like 3 hours later, but then I have to make sure that I'm on time to our weekly meetings on Wednesdays, which start at 8:00. So if I'm ever late, it's like, well, you were up at 3:00 in the morning to raid the waiver wire. You couldn't show up to a meeting on time. So it's a delicate fine line there of playing fantasy football with your coworkers. That notwithstanding, going back to Ryan Tannehill, I still think this is all about Derrick Henry, who did not have a great week last week. But it was great to see him healthy, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens going forward with this Titans team. It's crazy to think here. And I forget the exact ranking, but the Titans are actually pretty good in terms of being in the top 10 defensively. I forget for what exact defensive metric, which is providing you all sorts of helpful and useful information.
Yeah, I know. They're great at something.
But here's the thing. They're great at something. And last year, they were great at something last year. They were the top seed in the AFC. Everybody forgets about that.
Oh, I don't.
And again, it was something that caught my eye. And hopefully somebody who's watching or listening, or maybe I'll figure it out, eventually over the course of the show, just caught my eye. And it's like the Titans are doing it again. And nobody's talking about it. Hopefully next hour when we're hanging out with Hollywood Titan on Shoot the Gap, our IDP podcast here, he may have a better idea than I.
I know the one thing that I saw earlier is that they're really ranked high in total pressures. I think they're first in total pressures in the NFL, but yet they're pretty low in terms of blitz percentage. And that's, yes, they're first in total pressures, yet they rank 27th in total blitz percentage. So, I mean, they're getting pressure from their interior. Obviously, a lot of we don't need to go into Shoot the Gap, but between Danico Autry, Jeffrey Simmons, they're getting pushed from that front four or front three, I guess, however they line up, and leaving their linebackers back. So, if that's what you were talking about, that is an outstanding metric.
Sure, we'll go with that. But I swear there's something else that it's whatever. I'll stop. I'll land the plane.
They're second in rushing yards allowed. Second fewest.
Okay.
Is that it? All right. Okay. Maybe we're getting somewhere.
Keep growing. I mean, this is all like impressive stuff here. When they lose linebackers, when their secondary is not playing up to stuff, when they lost, it's it is interesting that the Titans are doing something positive here on the defensive side of the ball, which has kind of been their MO for a few years. Going down to New Orleans, Andy Dalton remains the starter for the Saints. Honestly, folks, look, I know some people have been clamoring for Jameis Winston to take over Andy Dalton's spot. Like, what are you getting from either of these quarterbacks? I mean, here's the thing. As bad as they're playing, the only receiving option you care about on that team is Chris Olave, and he can catch them from anybody who's throwing the ball. So does it matter if it's Winston? Does it matter if it's Dalton? It's not like it's going to help. It's not like you all are going to be making the playoffs. Sorry to rain on your parade there. Get your umbrellas out. Go down marching down Bourbon Street all you want. It's not going to happen. So this means nothing to me. I still think the skill players for the Saints are still where they're at in terms of value. Referring to Olave, referring to Kamara. We got another comment here on the YouTube channel with my 12-team full PPR league. Lamar, Berkeley, Etienne, Diggs, AJ Brown, Foster Moreau, Evan Ingram. Your flex is Hopkins. Your bench is David Montgomery, Pickens, Foreman, Watson, Wan'Dale Robinson. Before playoffs, are you moving anything before trade deadline?
Foreman, maybe. Personally, I mean, if I have Barkley, ETN, David Montgomery with no Khalil Herbert, there's an abundance of running backs, and I think Foreman's value is probably the highest. I don't know what you would want in return. I mean, AJ Brown's a little banged up right now. At least it looked like from last game. Maybe some wide receiver depth wouldn't be a bad option. Oh, never mind. You have DeAndre Hopkins in your flex. That's getting a little more crowded there. Pickens is always a wide receiver 3-4. I don't know if you could pair somebody with Foreman, and
I'll try to offload. Honestly, I would try to package maybe Foreman and Wan'Dale Robinson, and see if you can upgrade the tight end a little bit here. Ingram. I don't know. I try and get on the Ingram train, but then I look at his output from week to week, and I'm like, this is very inconsistent. I don't know if I like this. Moreau obviously is filling in for Darren Waller. I do like him from a matchup-based perspective, but if you can get somebody at the tight end position, which I know is asking a lot because tight end is so thin, that can give you more consistency week in and week out by packaging a guy like Foreman and kind of getting Robinson off your because are you really starting Wan'Dale Robinson in any serious matchup here? No. Barring injury? Probably not, right? So loading up, let's see here. He has a question here. Foreman and Wan'Dale for maybe Dulcich.
I like I mean, it's hard because you're. I think what you need to do is you need to find the team. Look through the leagues. Look through your league's rosters and see who might actually want Foreman. Because a running back heavy team has no use of Foreman, and that's going to be your golden ticket to try to get the most value. So see who, of the teams, if there's 2 or 3 that need a running back, because clearly you have a few of them. And compare those tight ends, and because if you just throw out names of players, I love that approach. But if the guy who has Dulcich has Derrick Henry and insert other good running backs, so I don't need Eckler, they'll never want they won't want Foreman. So that's my approach always.
Yeah, go for the wide receiver heavy teams. I think are the way to go there. Honestly, we talk about Dulcich. Talk to the Njoku manager. He's progressing on that path. And before he went out due to the injury, I want to say he was like the tight end 3 over the past 6 weeks at that time. So somebody may want to consider there, especially with Watson coming back. The more weapons for the Browns, the better. So just something to throw out there, something to think about. Thank you very much for the question.
That's a great call, Jorge. Njoku is solid. Him. Continuing on.
Okay, continuing. Let's see here. One more thing he says here. For sure, thanks for all the input. Any tight ends with Foreman trade value that you especially like?
The aforementioned Njoku.
Yeah, Njoku, I think, is the one you kind of want to go after.
Me some.
And honestly, even though he's returning to practice right now, I wouldn't be so quick to throw away or discard Isaiah Likely, referring to Mark Andrews returning to practice, because we don't know how that's going to pop up. And you have somebody who you can insert into your starting lineup with, like Evan Ingram, still. I'm not saying that enthusiastically, but he's somebody that you could still insert into the lineup. But getting somebody for the stretch down to the playoffs for Mark Andrews, who's been banged up lately, just throwing it out there. But I would go, for example, Njoku, and then maybe a likely, in this case, if you're throwing in Foreman into this trade package, likely and insert wide receiver 3 into your deal there. But great questions. Thanks, DJ.
Yeah, thanks, DJ.
So let's go here. Hollywood Brown back at practice. Man, this is nuts. This is
fast.
Yeah, it is. Thank you. It is very fast, and it makes me weary of like fading Rondale, and it makes me, I don't know. There's something out here like where the target distribution is going to go with D-Hop back. Although him and Kyler Murray are not exactly best friends right now, because I don't know if you saw it on the sideline. They were getting into it pretty well. So not that really they'll figure it out, right?
I think they'll be fine.
I think they'll be fine as well. Yeah, so it is interesting. I wouldn't fire him back into my starting roster position this week. I want to see how that works. Chances are you've been doing okay without him there. So yeah, Benjamin released by the Cardinals, picked up by the Texans, if the memory serves me correctly. So that is added depth there. I am, if I'm the Damian Pierce manager, that doesn't mean anything to me. I'm not concerned. Benjamin stealing touches away from a guy who's putting up over 100 plus yards rushing a game, getting the volume there. Coincidentally, a former Texan is now with the Saints. David Johnson is signed with the New Orleans Saints here as a depth piece. Again, great in 2016. I will always remember David Johnson's 2016 season. It was fantastic. It was magical. But it's not 2016 anymore. So
they have Jordan. Don't they have Jordan Howard too? Jordan Howard
got released also by the Texans. I don't know if they signed him to the.
No, the Saints signed Jordan Howard, and they activated Jordan Howard.
Well, I think okay. Then I may be conflicting my results here because I thought I read earlier this week that Jordan Howard got released by somebody, but I could be wrong.
No, I mean that's not. Don't get me wrong. I love to think I have my finger on the pulse with a lot of things. Jordan Howard updates is not one of them that I'm focusing on. Make sure you don't screw this up, Nate. Yep, Saints cut Jordan Howard and Derek Gore. R.I.P. Jordan Howard. So there we go. Congratulations. We've now
we've solved the mystery of Jordan.
We've solved the mystery of Jordan Howard. He moves on. Thank God. Which is good for Alvin Kamara owners because the week that Jordan Howard would get inserted is the 3 rushes, 4 yards, 2 touchdown week that none of us want, that we all know is bound to happen. So me being a Kamara manager, good job, Saints. Beat it.
I'll tell you what though. I'll tell you what. This I was joking a lot about this David Johnson signing here, but
nope.
2016 David Johnson, pass catching running back who can run up the middle versus I know I'm
nope. Move on.
I'm stopping.
Next.
Moving on. PJ Walker, speaking of next, high ankle sprain out this week. Baker Mayfield is slated to start. Well, DJ Moore managers, I hope you had a good time. I don't know what to make of this other than damn it. You're still
I don't know. I mean, no. The answer is no, for sure. I'm not excited being DJ Moore manager. I never was excited. But he had finishes of 56, blah, 28, 36, 36. I know they weren't the wide receiver 8 and 5 finishes that we'd seen, but it's better than what we'd seen in the last 2 weeks. So, I mean, it's maybe positive. I don't know. I'm trying to be optimistic.
I mean, we'll see. I guess, right? That's when in doubt, we'll see here. Let's see here. We got another comment here. What's up with this crew? Been too long. What's up, Gator? I haven't heard you. Haven't seen you in a bit. Where you been, man? We've been missing you.
Yeah. What? He's busy, man. Gator's got a lot going on.
He does have a lot going on. Gator,
he's popular.
But glad to have you back here on the stream, and of course, hang out with us as we get you ready for the fantasy playoffs and help get you that title, man. So great to see you again. Stay tuned. Speaking of staying tuned, you called it.
I know.
You called it in the pregame show this past week. You said Michael Pittman, I think he's going to have a great week. I said, why? And you said, because Jeff Saturday at halftime is going to put in Matt Ryan. Well, you were partly right and you were partly wrong. You didn't have to wait till halftime.
Correct.
And it was hilarious because I'm watching the game and right before kickoff, it's literally right before kickoff, the announcer's like, oh, and by the way, Matt Ryan will be starting this game. Like, how is this not more pressing news? Right as the ball is getting kicked off.
Yeah.
But he played great. Matt Ryan played great. He is back. Hopefully he will remain as the starter. And I think that is the way to go. It was there were a couple parallels here with that matchup. One, they were both about this situation. It was this situation with Ellinger and Matt Ryan reminded me very much of Osweiler and Peyton Manning, in the sense that you brought in this unproven quarterback take over. The old veteran who is slipping in playing performance had a little bit of an injury, referring, of course, to Peyton Manning with his, I believe it was a Liz Frank injury, if memory serves me correctly.
Yeah.
That was a while ago.
Yes.
And then Osweiler didn't play well, and then it was against Pittsburgh on a Sunday Night Football game that the Broncos needed to have the victory, that they brought Peyton Manning back in, and he led the team down a scoring drive to win the game. And it was very much the same. It was very much Matt Ryan coming in there and just leading his team down. You saw as he went and as he was motivated to do well. So was Jonathan Taylor. So was everybody else in this Colts offense. And all of a sudden, the Colts offense has life. It was very refreshing to see. They played so well that they made Derek Carr cry at his press conference. So things are pretty good for the Colts there. And what was really impressive is that seeing him scramble for what was that, like a 25 yards scramble? Like,
Yeah,
I remember back at the AFC Championship, the last one with Brady and Manning, and another parallel. Manning took off running, and you remember the shows on NFL Network, America's Game, where they highlight the Super Bowl winner of the year. They go over like a year-long documentary, and I remember DeMarcus Ware saying, as he saw Peyton Manning take off, like, he really wants this. And that's exactly what I saw. I saw Matt Ryan have some desperation. It's like, I really want this victory. Anyhow, a lot of parallels and comparisons and anecdotes here, but it was great to see. What that means success going forward. We will see going to Green Bay, Christian Watson. Good for you. Good for you. I mean, you were drafted. Was it third round? I think
second round, second pick.
There you go. A lot of question marks coming out of Northern Iowa, if memory serves me correctly. Question marks regarding, is this the guy we should have gone after by many of the Packers fans and fantasy analysts and NFL analysts out there? Your very first game in Minnesota with Brett Favre, with Aaron Rodgers. You dropped that touchdown, you dropped that pass, and what did you do? You absolutely redeemed yourself in the
9
way
weeks
that
later.
the guys of Dumb and Dumber did. 3 touchdowns, just unbelievable. What are you thinking about Christian Watson going forward? Was that just perfect time, space, and place, or do you think there's something more to be had here?
No, I mean, I think that if you saved your fab, this is the time to save it for. I mean, granted, don't get me wrong. I am far from saying I think Aaron Rodgers looks like he's anything but kind of washed. I hate to say that, but I mean, having Christian Watson, size, speed, and it was North Dakota State.
Yeah. Carson Wentz went to the same school, I think.
Don't want to offend anybody from North Dakota State versus the Northern Iowa.
Touche. The Midwest.
Yeah, exactly. Missouri Valley is my conference, but regardless. So, I mean, I'll get to this a little bit, like as far as like this week and certain other weeks, I worry that Christian Watson height might be a little big. I mean, upcoming schedule is not exactly wonderful. It's not bad. Tennessee, Philly, Chicago, then a bye week, then the Rams, but 8 targets, 40% target percentage, ate up all the air yards, everything positive about the receiver you like to see. I just don't want people jumping in thinking he's going to be a wide receiver 1, but he could be that rookie. Each year we see it. There's a rookie that carries people to a fantasy championship, and I'm not going to say he's Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I think the parallels in terms of opportunity, situation, Green Bay's defense isn't exactly, crushing people to the point where they're going to be up in games consistently. And so there's a chance that they may need to spread the ball around a little bit. And Christian Watson, if you picked him up, I think he could be a pretty solid wide receiver 3 with wide receiver 1 upside each week.
Yeah, no, if you were the Cooper Cup manager, you were definitely scrambling to fill in the void somehow, some way.
Good. Yeah.
So we'll see what happens there. To round out other players that have gone on the injured reserve, meaning they're out for at least a minimum of 4 weeks. Khalil Herbert, that sucks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that sucks. But I have no doubt that he'll be back next year as the Bears starting running back. hot, medium take, whatever you want to call that. That's just my thoughts on the matter. Dallas Goedert. Oh, and by the way, Khalil Herbert, I do actually see coming, unlike a Cooper Kupp, where the Rams are going nowhere. I think the Bears will finish off the season competitively, and I do see Khalil Herbert coming back to help finish with that. That's just, again, another hot, medium take, however you want to call that. Dallas Goedert out 4 weeks. He'll be back definitely. Zach Ertz, is Ertz a different situation? Is he out for the year, or is this just another 4-week wait and see situation here?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm Arizona if I even bring back Zach Ertz this year. I mean, he's done for the season with the knee injury. Is what it is knee. Yeah, it's done for the season.
Okay. And they got Trey McBride there. If you didn't pick him out on your waiver wire, and he's still available, somebody to pick up. Again, another tight end option there. And then we get to Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. And I sat here last week and I wrote in the Start and Sit article that Russell Wilson and this Titans defense are a match made in heaven in terms of the Titans being horrible, in terms of wide receivers, and Russell Wilson's going to carve them up, and then you have Jeudy go down with the injury, and then just things weren't clicking. This certainly is not bode well. I don't know what the long-term ramifications of Judy's injury are. KJ Hamler, I want to say, got hurt in practice during the week, if memory serves me correctly. Just this Broncos offense as a whole just gives me zero faith. What do you know about these two guys here, Nate?
Yeah, Judy's injury is not as bad as what they, according to him at least. They think that that's maybe just a 1 week thing, more of the week-to-week variety. Hackett has said that Hamler will be out multiple weeks with so his hamstring must be even worse than what they were thinking, which sucks too, because I really like KJ Hamler as an optimistic pickup, but I guess that's pivot to Kendall Hinton, who could be another waiver wire little just pickup, even though it's Denver, it's gross. There's nothing good about that situation right now, other than he's a healthy body on the field. Could very easily see, 20% of the targets, and it wouldn't shock me. Now, does that turn into anything with Russ? I don't know. We'll see. But
yeah, no, it's going to be an interesting situation in Denver now, and then also in the offseason. So with that's going to round out basically the news here. For more defensive-oriented news, again, tune in for the next hour at Shoot the Gap, our IDP podcast. We'll get into more things on the defensive side of the ball. And now, as we do each week, let's get into our plays and fades. We talk about 2 to 3 players per position on offense, players that we think are going to exceed expectations, and then players that we think you should probably temper your expectations for, hence the play and fade. And so with that, let's just get into it. I'm going to start here at the quarterback position here. And my first play for the week is somebody who I've been fading for a while, and I have to admit, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I was wrong about Daniel Jones last week. I've been wrong about Daniel Jones for the past month. He's going against the Detroit Lions this week, who are giving up the most fantasy points to the position on the season. Daniel Jones has more rushing yards than Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray. Over the past month, he's been averaging 17.2 points per game. That puts him as the QB 10 in that time span. That's last I heard that's pretty impressive. And something that is also kind of impressive, I always perceived the Giants' offensive line as kind of being like a sieve when it comes to pressures, but they've allowed the 24th most pressures. So I mean, they're not as horrible as people are saying. Now, granted, a lot of that probably has to do with the fact that Daniel Jones is scrambling and therefore not allowing the pressure to get to him, and therefore the offensive linemen are getting check marks for that. You don't think so?
No, because the pressure will constitute a quarterback hurry. And if you are forcing Daniel Jones out of the pocket, they'll constitute that potentially as a quarterback hurry, and it might give him the pressure anyway.
Look at that. It's funny how different websites constitute pressures differently with quarterback hurries. I like that. Thank you, Pro Football Focus. That is fantastic. Look, I just feel like this is going to be a great matchup for him. The rushing upside, even the passing upside. And here's the thing. he's getting sacked. I mean, he's taking a lot of abuse here when he does just sit in the pocket there. But it's the scrambling upside. I feel like that's just really going to help his fantasy output this weekend. Like I said, the Lions are giving up the most fantasy points to the position, so he makes it work. I know I just said he's getting sacked here, although they're allowing the 24th most pressures. Look, he does get sacked. They do allow for sacks, but at the same time, not as many as you would think. So this is a great matchup for Daniel Jones this week against the Detroit Lions. And then my next quarterback here that we're playing is Captain Kirk himself, Kirk Cousins versus the Dallas Cowboys. You look at the battles up front. You look at the offensive linemen. You look at the offensive tackles for the Minnesota Vikings, who have been playing lights out this year. You look at the pass rushers for the Dallas Cowboys, DeMarcus Lawrence, Micah Parsons. I mean, these guys are just, the best of the best. And you have these two sides of the ball colliding, much like how you saw it last week, minus not Epineza, but although he did have a good week. Who am I thinking about for the pass rushers for the Bills? Not Von Miller, the opposite side. That would be...
that was Epineza. It was...
No, but who's the guy who's week to week? I keep forgetting who that
Gregory Rousseau.
Thank you. God, why do I keep forgetting that name? Better get that together for the next hour. So we saw a great matchup up front last week, Buffalo and Minnesota. I think you're going to see another great matchup here with the Dallas Cowboys. Here's the thing. The Dallas Cowboys, Aaron Rodgers, Christian Watson, Aaron Jones, 3 players. Like, they didn't even need like offensive linemen on the field or fullbacks or anybody else. You could have had, it was basically those 3 players carved up the Dallas Cowboys in Lambeau. Okay. Now, what are you going to do when you have Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook, TJ Hawkinson, Adam Thielen? Oh, I can throw in Alexander Madison for some goal line work. Oh, CJ Ham can get some work at the goal. Like, literally, there's so many offensive weapons here for Kirk Cousins. It's just, for me, this is he got 17.5 points last week. I see that definitely being matched, if not getting you more this week. Going to the running back position, my play here, two plays. David Montgomery versus the Falcons. Again, no Khalil Herbert. We talked about that in news and notes. The Falcons gave up recently on Thursday Night Football 130 yards and 1 touchdown to Deontay Foreman. They're allowing 4.4 yards per carry on the season. They're allowing the 4th most rushing touchdowns on the season. In terms of time of possession, they are 9th in time of possession allowed to opposing running games on the season. Look, I know Justin Fields is the RB1, if you want to call him that, even though he is running like he is the RB1. But for an RB2, for goal line work, for the rushing touchdowns there, I really think it's going to come down to goal line work for Montgomery this week versus Atlanta, which I think is going to definitely help get you some low to mid RB2 numbers for David Montgomery. So don't fade him just because Justin Fields is the guy who's running the ball a lot. I will say Tristan Ebner, if he's available on your waiver wire, you know how you can tag a player or flag them for just keeping track of where they're at. Do that. He's a rookie, I believe, coming into this season, and he's been getting some pretty good remarks and praise there in the Windy City. And finally, the last play I have here for today for running back, it's a 2-parter here. Kenyon Drake or Gus Edwards. Kenyon Drake had a great week last week. Carolina this week, their matchup has allowed the 6th most rushing yards to opposing teams on the season, allowed the 7th most touchdowns. They're 5th most allowed in fantasy points per game to the running back position. Kenyon Drake, resurgent. The only issue here is Gus Edwards is now coming back. He got in a limited practice today. Which one of these two is declared the starter, which you won't really know till the actives report comes out on Sunday, which of course we will give you that information on the Fantasy and Frames pregame show starting at 9:30 a.m. each and every Sunday morning. If they say Gus Edwards is active, I'm rolling with Gus Edwards. If Kenyon Drake is active, or Gus Edwards is inactive, I'm rolling Kenyon Drake. It really doesn't matter to me who's in this backfield for the Baltimore Ravens. I want whoever the person is going to be starting because this is a juicy matchup for the Baltimore Ravens. So to round it out, my plays and fades at quarterback and running back are Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, David Montgomery, and either Kenyon Drake or Gus Edwards.
Yeah, I like them. You know, the Drake and Gus Edwards one. I'm right there with you. I think Gus Edwards rest of the season. You know, the way they've been running the ball selectively. You know, Kenyon Drake has been a been a RB2, RB3, top 15 in 3 of the 4 games. So I mean, you're getting Ronnie Stanley who healthy, and it's huge for that running game. So there's a lot of pieces coming together for Baltimore. Obviously, not having Mark Andrews is bad, but you know, you keep Lamar upright, and a lot of good things can happen.
Well, Andrews got an unlimited practice also today, so it seems like these pieces are starting to gel or come together. So it's interesting how things progress as the week goes on. But thanks for your breakdown right there. Who you got for wide receiver, Nate?
Yeah. I want to see what talk about recovery. If Stafford is back, then obviously the news. Cooper Kupp, I don't want to talk anymore about that. It just hurts me a little bit because the Kings Classic team lost such a good player. But I'll tell you who I think is going to step in. A lot of conversation about, is it going to be Allen Robinson? Is it going to be Van Jefferson? Who's going to inherit the majority of the roles? Tyler Higbee. I'm going to say who has the highest upside from where they're at. And right now has been Skowronek, who is the wide receiver 55. And I see a case to be made for him as a wide receiver 3 flex option this week. You know, steadily involved with this offense. The route participation, it was, from 55% over the last 2 games played, it was 100% this past week. A lot had to do with Cooper Kupp being out. But he's shown us that when he has significant snaps in the slot, let's go back to week 6 against Carolina. He was wide receiver 16 on the week. They're against New Orleans. Tough matchup on paper. A couple things working in his favor. Number 1, no Pete Werner. Plays across the middle. You don't have to worry about Pete Werner, who's having surgery. He's PFF's 19th best graded in coverage linebackers.
Crazy.
So one of the positives there, you still have DeMario Davis, but always nice to reduce people. And then 2 is when he's lined up, he's most likely going to line up against Chris Harris, who's their slot corner. Chris Harris has an 80% reception allowed number on the season, which is the 11th highest among all cornerbacks. Great matchup. Plenty of opportunity. Target volume, we hope, should be there. But just being on the field, and I think there's, he doesn't feel the Cooper Kupp style. He doesn't look like Cooper Kupp. He doesn't, the same size and everything else. But I think we'll see that familiarity in the slot. And I think that's where he's going to succeed. It wouldn't shock me to see, 5 catches or 6 for 65 and maybe a score. Good enough flex opportunity for sure. That's my borderline flex play. My who could give you top 2, maybe not top 2 overall, but wide receiver 2 upside goes along with your play of Daniel Jones. Darius Slayton, very under rostered right now. Top 36 wide receiver in like 4 of the past 5 games he's played. Detroit, extremely friendly to pass catchers. Quarterbacks, pass catchers have a great, rapport there against Detroit. Here's where Darius Slayton's been really successful is that as of late, that 75% route participation in week 10 is exactly what you're hoping for and on the way up. We don't want him to not be on the field. Obviously, that sounds so stupid to say. I hear myself talking sometimes and I go, well, no shit, you idiot. But you know what I'm saying. And
dude, I'm the Booger McFarlane of talking, so don't feel too bad. It's okay.
Well, you try to say it in a way that doesn't sound so cliche and normal and matter of fact, and of course. But here's where it got good last week is he had a 24% target per route run. That's elite. To go along with the 24% target share. Each week we're seeing Darius Slayton be the guy for Daniel Jones, and he keeps staying on the waiver wire. I don't know. I don't want to go too high into this because let's be honest, it's still a New York Giants offense. It still will go through Saquon Barkley, and it's still Daniel Jones who will look to run the ball if he has to get out of trouble. But if he's going to focus somewhere, we know it's not Kenny Galladay. That is for damn certain. I think we figured out.
Worst contract ever.
Oh, I don't know. That or Chandler Jones. We'll see who's up
Oh.
there. But if there's one final little piece, Daniel Jones, you mentioned earlier, 24th in pressures. When he has been given more than 2.5 seconds, clean pocket, he has a league low 7.9 ADOT. Darius Slayton's ADOT so far, really over the past couple weeks since his involvement in the offense, 8.4. So, I mean, again, that might just be me putting two pieces together that seem to fit on a puzzle piece, even though you know they don't. You just cram it in there and you say, look, together, got it. That's what I'm doing. And if it works, it works. If it doesn't, sue me.
Yeah, works for me.
Tight end. How much fun are we having with tight end plays? Essentially, what I have to do is pick a tight end that might score a touchdown. If I do that properly, then we win. That's about it. It's about the game. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to give it to Trey McBride. I have a caveat too. If Mark Andrews is out, I'm going to lean Isaiah Likely. That's a free spot just based on where he's at. If Andrews is out right now, if they rule him out in 20 minutes, if you go to the ECR rankings, Likely would jump into the top 12, almost guaranteed. But he's not there now, and we record right now, so I will take advantage of that. But Trey McBride, positives. Obviously, he ran 76% of the routes last week. 19% of them, Jorge, were out wide. I love involvement in this offense. He only had one target. I get that. I know. This was still a learning curve, and it was still Zach Ertz's offense. Ertz is now gone, and he has a chance to be on the field. This offense could be explosive, especially if we have Kyler healthy. That's where we have to have. This is assumed that Kyler's there. Even if Colt's there, Colt McCoy could look his direction. But, he has to contend with DeAndre Hopkins. He has to contend with Rondale Moore. And this will probably be the last week that he won't have to mess with Hollywood. So San Francisco, by far, not an easy matchup. But if I'm thinking how San Francisco will try to attack this Arizona offense, is I think they're going to focus on the aforementioned Nook and Rondale Moore, leaving Trey McBride to have a little more of the middle of that field, which isn't always good because that's where Fred Warner likes to stay. But, one other little piece to this too, and I just thought of this now, and I wonder what they'll do. Hufanga has been playing deep. He played deeper lately. And I don't like it. I don't like it for our IDP standpoint. But I wonder if that gives Trey McBride a little more room to work potentially. Maybe something to key on if it goes that direction. So those are some plays that I think that I will have some pieces in some capacity. I know that maybe we'll hear Keith and Joe on their DFS. Maybe they'll have some of these guys in their plays for DFS as well. If they do, then I feel really comfortable about theyese picks because they've been they're crushing everything. So, hopefully,
So I second that. Keith and Joe of the Daily Fix podcast here at Fantasy and Frames literally are getting so many picks right. So many players are performing so well in the DraftKings lineups that they're suggesting at their bargain and median and expensive tier plays. You could listen to them on Thursdays at 9 p.m. Eastern. Keith this week will be going to you live from Las Vegas, so something tells me he will be enjoying his time on the show this week. Last week, they had Detroit Beastie, Chris Robbins, who we're huge fans of. Loved chatting with him whenever we're at the Fantasy Football Expo. Just a lot of great guests lined up. Bob Harris is eventually going to be on the show from Football Die Hard. We got Joe Pepe from Fantasy Pros going to be on the show. So definitely looking forward to that, as well as their Thanksgiving show or Thanksgiving play show next Tuesday. Get you ready for all those Thanksgiving slates you got going on. But anyhow, speaking of slates, speaking of betting, let's talk about Underdog Fantasy. This is probably one of the best apps to use for prop bets, whether it's playing their rivals game where you have one player versus another and you have to pick like which stat is going to be in one player's direction or the other. You could still do week-to-week best ball leagues. You could do this for any single sport that's currently active. If you use the promo code FRAMES, you get 100% up to your first deposit, up to $100. What's really cool about this, unlike other apps or DFS games here, they are allowed in the most states in the United States. This like the gambling and this is found to be available in the most states here. So it's definitely a good app, definitely good games there. Yeah, I can't say enough more good things about Underdog. So head over to Underdog Fantasy today. Sign up if you haven't already. Use the promo code FRAMES and get 100% up to $100 on your first deposit. And with that, let's now get into the womps. Let's get into the fades of the week. And, I'll start with the quarterback position. I talked about him earlier. I said, we said in the news and notes, Matt Ryan is back. Well, this week he's going against Philadelphia, who may be a little bit upset that they just lost their first game to the Washington Commanders, which hail to the Commanders. Let's see here. Since the beginning of October, the Colts have given up the third most pressures and have allowed the most sacks in that time span. So, October, we're almost towards the end of November. That's almost 2 months. Not great. Philly allows around 11 points per game to the position. And when we talk about Matt Ryan, look, he's only eclipsed 18 fantasy points 3 times. So let's not make it out to seem like Matt Ryan has been like the savior of this Colts offense. There's a reason why he got benched, for Ellinger. Obviously, Saturdays, thinking that the veteran presence here can help with the intangibles on the field. I don't think intangibles are going to be enough for Matt Ryan this week. He had a great game against the Raiders, but I would temper expectations here and fade Matt Ryan versus the Philadelphia Eagles this week. My second fade for the week, and you were talking about him a lot, or you mentioned him in passing with Skoranek as your wide receiver play. I'm actually down on Matt Stafford this week, and I'm not saying this like other skill positions for the Rams can't have success, but just because a wide receiver for the Rams has success doesn't necessarily mean that their quarterback is going to be fantasy successful. The Saints, while they've been allowing 17 points per game to the position, okay. Look, no Cooper Kupp. The Rams O-line has been giving up the second most pressures in the NFL, and they've been giving up the second most sacks. And last I heard, having a bad offensive line combined with giving up a lot of sacks, combined with having a quarterback coming out of the concussion protocol, that doesn't sound like a ringing endorsement of somebody that I want in my fantasy lineup or in my real football lineup to begin with. This feels more like a good running game situation. Did you know last week 6 different Saints defensive players had a sack or a half a sack last week against a woeful Pittsburgh Steelers team who also has a craptacular offensive line? What are they going to do to Matt Stafford? Like, I'm not feeling it this week. So yeah, I'm fading Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford. At the running back position now, I am fading James Conner. Look, I faded him last week. I was a week early. This week he's going against the 49ers, who are allowing the fewest fantasy points per game to opposing running backs on the season. They, as a defense, are allowing the fewest yards per carry average. Did you know that the 49ers have only allowed 744 rushing yards total to opposing running backs this season? That's ridiculous.
Yeah,
that is ridiculous. That doesn't ring well for that doesn't sound good for James Conner this week. So I'm fading him. Another running back I'm fading this week, which I don't know if this is low-hanging fruit anymore, but you know what? For the sake of the show, we're just going to say that it's not, and I'm going to keep going with it. And that's A.J. Dillon versus the Tennessee Titans on Thursday night. Like San Fran, very stingy on the ground, only allowing 766 rushing yards on the season. Opposing running backs have an average of 3.9 yards per carry. And when we look at the splits here for the Green Bay Packers at the running back position, Aaron Jones has dominated rushing attempts since week 8, 53 to 34. It's everything is going the Aaron Jones' way. And why am I not fading Aaron Jones? Because Aaron Jones is more of a receiving threat also out of the backfield, more so than I think A.J. Dillon. A.J. Dillon just seems like he's been typecasted as the plotter of this Green Bay Packers running game, and that's not going to be going good. That's not going to be good this week against Tennessee. So I would fade James Conner, A.J. Dillon at the running back position this week. And at quarterback, I would fade Matt Ryan and Matthew Stafford. And with that, let's go to wide receivers.
Yeah, it's challenging to take a person who, as I alluded to earlier, in the blow up week that Christian Watson had. But right now, currently ECR, he's the wide receiver 24. For me, that's a little too optimistic. I don't want to say I'm fading him as a play altogether because the upside is a wide receiver 1. The upside is the wide receiver 1 because, coming off of a 3-touchdown week, clearly he already had a wide receiver 2 finish, but he's had wide receiver finishes of 65, 89, 37, 113, 80, 51. I know limited playing time, limited route run, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's what I've seen with Tennessee as of late. They've been playing a lot of 2-deep safety, cover two shell safety with Kevin Byard and Andrew Adams back there deep. They've even utilized a third safety at times. They did that against the Chiefs, forgive me, a few weeks back and really slowed that offense down. We saw that this past week as well. So the one thing I'll also say is that if they use Christian Watson, what we expect, fly routes, nines, just running deep and using his blend of size and speed, that's where Tennessee's stat that you had brought up earlier, you didn't even know you were doing me a favor in that they have the NFL's leading pressure amount at 103. I don't know if that gives Rodgers the time to really allow Watson just to destroy the secondary deep like that. I think he can still be dangerous. I think he'll still get the target share, and I'm excited to watch that because as an Aaron Rodgers manager still, deep leagues, can't do much about that. I need all the weapons possible. But I think from an ECR 24, caution I have a little less expectations. Temper expectations is the right phrase I was looking for. It's right there. It's getting close. But the other one and the other fade is kind of a combo meal. It's like the, buy one, get one. If I'm going to fade either or maybe both, is Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel. I know Terry McLaurin's coming off that game that you want to say, all right, this is the Terry McLaurin that we know can show up every week. Post game, as you were talking about, reaffirms this is the commander. This is the mander I want to be behind or back. That sounds a lot better. I'm just going to back this guy instead of be behind him. But what have the Houston Texans done extremely well? Not much. What have they done extremely bad? Quite a bit, mostly on the ground. And that's where I think this is I think both Brian Robinson, Antonio Gibson should destroy Houston. I don't think that leaves enough opportunity for Terry McLaurin and Curtis Samuel to eat. I don't know if it's enough for either of them to finish where they have them as far as ECR, which is what, the wide receiver 11. I know I should have it right now, and the wide receiver 21. I don't know about you, but that seems a little too high for me for both of them. And here's a tight end, fading a tight end again. What are you doing? Picking a tight end that might not score a touchdown or has a matchup that we've seen so far in the season. Tell me if you thought that Dallas would be one of the more tight end stingy defenses in the league.
That would not be my first guess, no.
Would not have been my guess either, but I have looked back, and they do have a track record this season of stopping the opposing tight end. They played TJ Hawkinson just in week 7. They held him to 4 receptions for 48 yards. You know what the most yards they've given up all season to opposing tight ends?
I'm going to say 50.
48 yards to TJ Hawkinson. So he is the most against them so far. And it's not like they've played Kelsey and Goddard and I'd say Pitts and Kittle, but they have played some of them. They played Goddard and held him down. They played Logan Thomas. Sorry, not exactly the best shot, but you get the idea. So yeah, TJ Hawkinson. I love the matchup, like you said, with Cousins earlier, but I think this is a situation where if I have to choose one of those guys up top, I'm going to go with the Dallas defense to slow him down.
All right. Well, that's going to round up here all of our plays and fades. Just to recap here, quarterback, offensive skill plays, Daniel Jones, Kirk Cousins, David Montgomery, Kenyon Drake or Gus Edwards, Brent Skoranek, Darius Slayton, Trey McBride, Evangelist Zad, Isaiah Likely. Our fades here, Matt Ryan, Matthew Stafford, James Conner, AJ Dillon, Terry McLaurin and or Curtis Samuel based off of where their ECR is at, Christian Watson, same premise, and TJ Hawkinson. Rachel, what's going on? Great to see you here. Let's see here. We got another comment here from Craig. When your fantasy is not going well, sometimes all you can do is aim for the bushes.
Aim for the bushes, Craig.
Yes. Thank you for bringing back the other guy references. It's been a while.
He knows what's coming on. He's just getting ready. He's got 4 minutes and 9 seconds until it's other guys at Palooza if we want. Rachel, tune in there as well when we see you guys here shortly for the Shoot the Gap pod.
Yep, our all IDP podcast that we have here every Wednesday. Apologize for the late 30-minute backup here for our shows this evening. My fault. But normally we are on 4th and Frames, 8 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday. Shoot the Gap, 9 p.m. Eastern. Our Daily Fix pod is on 9 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. Our Dynasty pod, Dynasty 365, 7:30 p.m. Eastern on Wednesdays. So yeah, that's going to wrap us up here. For more content in video form, head over to our YouTube channel, like, subscribe. Over the weekend, we have our Beat the Waiver Wire segment where our director of content here, FF Chalupa Batman, aka Zach Berger, gives you a 5-minute video breaking down players that you should grab before the 1 o'clock kickoffs on Sunday. That way you beat everybody to the waiver wire for week, now 12 coming up this week, as well as tune in every Sunday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern. We go for about two and a half to 3 hours, which is nuts, right? On a Sunday morning. Thank you very much, all the Fantasy and Frames family, for waking up that early. We cover every game, talk about every fantasy relevant player on offense and IDP, as well as answering all of your start and sit questions. So we get you ready for each and every week. And of course, head over to fantasyandframes.com, read our articles. I read our waiver wire articles for offense and IDP. Our start and sit articles will be out for offense and IDP tomorrow. We got our chasing upside articles for offense and IDP, where we're looking at players who can outproduce where they're currently ranked according to Fantasy Pros half PPR. Look for buy low, sell highs. I mean, we got it all, folks. So head over to fantasyandframes.com. Head over to our YouTube, like, subscribe, like I said earlier, Facebook, Instagram. We got content just overflowing everywhere. Really would appreciate the support. Really appreciate the support you all have been giving us, and thank you very much for tuning in with us each and every week. Shoot the Gap is next. So for Nate, I'm Jorge. Take care, folks.